when it is just about life's got really crazy for us.
Yeah.
And then there's no really undercurrent things that you probably need to deal with, the reason why you don't see each other anymore.
Yeah.
This is what you do. And it's a very beautiful practice. And it's a physical practice.
Oh, I like that.
Okay? And then you have to make sure you have time to do this physical practice.
Okay.
My husband and I have always committed to looking at each other into each other's eyes and saying, I see you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Renew Podcast. I am your host, Kristen Andre, and back with me again for another episode is the amazing Lisa Washington. And today, guys, we are tackling the topic that you guys have been asking for what are we on? We're in year 5 of the podcast now, and you guys have been asking for this topic for about 5 years. And I am not an expert in it, so I have brought in the expert. So today we are talking about relationships, those couple and love relationships. So Lisa Washington, welcome back with us.
Thank you for having me.
I love having you here. You're a wealth of knowledge. And since I get the opportunity to kind of tap into your brain personally, that helps as well.
Yeah.
But so a couple weeks ago you were here and we talked about the importance of the relationship you have with yourself.
Yes.
And why that, and how that kind of boils over into every other relationship in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think, as I've done work with you and I've kind of thought through what you talked about with that, is I feel like a lot of times that's the basis of everything. So if we're in a good relationship with ourselves, we talked about the end of that a couple weeks ago. If we're in a good relationship with ourselves, we attract the right relationships to us.
Yes.
But if we're not, we may not attract the right ones.
Right.
So let's talk about that. So let's dive into kind of the whole love and couple thing. Because I will be the first to admit, made some bad choices.
Me too.
In my past. Most of us have. Learned from them.
Yep.
Little slow on the uptake with some of that learning. But I do feel like once you get to the right person in the right relationship, it gets easier. Never easy, but easier.
Right.
So when we are thinking of dating, let's start there with the dating. I know, right? Why are people messing up? Why do we make so many mistakes in our dating lives, whether you're 20 or 80?
Well, I think the first thing is, if you haven't heard the first podcast about this, you need to go listen to it.
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
Right? Because we make all those mistakes because of the relationship that we're having with ourselves.
Yeah.
That's why those mistakes, because the only reference point that we have is ourselves. That's the only place you're kind of moving from.
So if we're crazy, we're attracting crazy.
Oh my gosh!
If we are combative and argumentative, we attract that. Like I have some friends that are couples. I will not name your names. They fight all the time. One of them yells, the other one yells, and they yell, and then there's a lot of yelling. But it kind of, it's like do. It just you attract.
Right.
What you're showing up as, right?
You attract what you're showing up as, even if you don't realize it. I remember many years ago, one of my mentors, her name was Cheryl Mann. Big red hair, blue eyes, just the most beautiful soul. She passed away from breast cancer about 20-some years ago. But I remember her telling me when I was very young, I was in my 20s, and she said, Lisa, you will attract who you are.
Yeah.
So you better get to know who that person is and learn to have a good relationship with her.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh. And it wasn't necessarily like, well, here's a deception. I'm really sweet and I'm kind and giving and loving and all of that. It was that part of me that was like, I'm not enough.
So were you attracting the people that were trying to fill that void or just you were attracting people that also weren't enough?
I was attracting people that validated what I truly believe about myself. That's what you do.
Yeah.
I was like, she said, look at all of you. Learn to love and accept all of you. She taught me this when I was like 19 years old.
Yeah.
This was one of my most amazing mentors I've ever had in my life. And it helped me so much because I had to look at all of who I was, that really magnificent, fantastic Lisa, but also those shadows of myself.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're going to attract who you are. If you are a woman that does not believe that she's enough, you're going to attract a man that's going to validate that for you every single time.
That you're not enough.
That you're not enough.
Ooh, that's true though.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And he may not show up as this guy like saying, girl, you're not enough. But it's the things he'll do and say and how he'll make you feel.
Right.
that will bring that truth that you living with up inside you every single time.
So why do we accept the relationships that do that? Sometimes I think it's ignorance is bliss. We don't realize
Right.
that's what's happening. But I think so often with dating, we try to make the square peg fit the round hole.
Yeah.
Like we're dating someone or we meet someone and we start to think about, oh, this is good and this is good, and we ignore all those red flags. I mean, I will say in past, I didn't date a lot. I mean, I was married a long time.
Right.
I didn't date a whole lot after that. But those couple people that I did, if there were any more red flags, it would have been like a barrage of, I mean, my friends were waving red flags.
Yeah.
I was waving red flags. I think random strangers were passing me in the street waving red flags, and we ignore them.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, and the red flags they were the parts of me that I'm like, okay, I needed that validation, or I needed this, or I
Right.
needed that. So you're spot on.
Yeah.
But when we realize it and we see that,
Yeah.
which a lot of people don't see it. Some people,
Yeah.
ignorance is bliss. But when we see that, why do we keep
Yeah.
going forward?
Well, I think that this is going to get really woo-woo, right?
Oh, Lord, here we come with the woo.
We're about to go with the woo-woo.
That's all right.
I think that every experience is to remind us of our wholeness that we've forgotten about, or sometimes we've given away. And it's for us to kind of either remember it or ask it back to our souls.
So give me an example.
So I think a lot of times when you say you're attracting someone and you really truly believe this about yourself, that I'm not enough, and you attract this person into your life that confirms that for you in a lot of different ways. They're showing up because there's a place in you that needs healing,
Got
and
it.
they happen to be the teacher.
Yeah.
You don't have to marry the teacher. You have to spend 10 years with the teacher. But when you recognize what the teacher is teaching, get the lesson and let it go.
So that is so true.
Yeah.
Girl, where
That's
were
the
you
woo-woo.
like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? But it's true, because a lot of times we learn the lesson, and some people are just there for a season.
Yeah.
I learned some valuable yet painful lessons in relationships. And I think that, a lot of times we stay with it too long.
Yeah, you do.
Like we just stick in it.
Yeah. Because you don't understand why it's there.
Yeah.
You still thinking it's there for this love. You still
Yeah.
thinking it's there to make this relationship work right. You
Right.
don't understand why this person has showed up.
Yeah.
You think it's this. So what you're doing is you're still working on what you think it is, when everything is said, no, it's this.
Yeah.
Your soul called that because it needs to be healed in that area, and that person happens to be the teacher that you attracted.
But we've got to heal from all those things before we can move forward and find out. So you've been married a hot minute.
Yeah, we've been together almost 30 years.
So 30 years is a long time.
That's a long time.
And I know your husband.
You do.
And we're going to say nice things about him because he's one of my favorites.
Oh, he's amazing.
He is. And so what do you attribute? First of all, I think having a mentor in your early 20s or 1920 helped
Yes.
because you knew that, and you didn't have, I'm sure you had things you were healing.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Still.
y'all been together. So for those of us, like we've got one end of the spectrum or the other here, right? But I feel like you're continually healing things. So with somebody who's been married or in a relationship as long as you have, how do you do that?
Continue to heal?
Yeah, I mean, because sure things are coming up, but my guess is you guys are both working together towards a common goal and a common betterment of each of you guys, and you're loving each other through the discoveries. Is that accurate?
That's very, very accurate. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna keep it real. So when I met my husband, and amazing, incredible guy. I love my husband. He's an incredible guy. I met him in, I think, 1992, 1993 when we met each other. And there are things about my husband that challenged the mess out of me. And there's things about him that, we challenged each other, right? But there's things that my husband touched in me constantly from the very beginning. It was a very, very, he was like, I'm going to put my finger on that.
Yeah.
Because in my faith, God knew this is something that you need to heal, and I brought this person into your life to help you do that. be a partner with you.
I feel like that's very different than somebody touching on an insecurity. Because I see that a lot and hear that a lot in relationships where you'll have a part of you, not necessarily that needs to be healing, but that's not strong or that's weak, and the other person will almost like a sore they're just poking at. Because I see that a lot too, and that's not healthy.
That's not healthy. This touching I'm talking about.
You're talking about helping you discover and uncover.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
That's a wonderful thing to have a partner. We do that to both of each other. Like, there's things that I will say and do that my husband you know what? That's really touching this inside of me.
So what's the difference? How do you tell the difference? So if somebody's in a relationship and, because what I'm sensing from you is when you did that or when you guys would uncover something, it was like, ooh, this is interesting. It feels we need to explore it more.
Yeah.
Where somebody else almost retracts. That's kind of the difference I'm seeing is that.
Yeah. No, you were
right.
Oh my.
Look at me.
She hit
coming in here with all the relationship
what
expertise.
You hit was curiosity versus
That's a great
criticism.
word. Oh, that's a great differentiation because I feel like in couple relationships, romantic relationships, curiosity is excellent.
Oh,
criticism
we need
is not.
That. That's how we get to know each other.
That's a very good distinction between the two.
Curiosity comes from a place of love.
Yeah.
And criticism comes from a place of fear. I'm afraid that you're not going to be something I think you need to be or what I expect
we're going back to this fear over love over fear thing again.
It's all that.
Comes back. But it's true because I think if I look back, in retrospect, because we're always good in retrospect, right? So if I look back at, not putting anybody down, marriage or whatever, there was a lot of criticism versus curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think with most of my friends who are either divorced or in relationships, I won't name names that you shouldn't be in to some of my friends that are listening. I think it's more criticism than curiosity.
Right. And the thing about it, we think criticism, there's healthy criticism. I am not a big one on that. I think there's healthy self-awareness. I think there's healthy curiosity. But criticism, almost, even the word itself almost feels like a knife. It feels
bad. Yeah, it does.
Like it's cutting. Versus when I am curious
Yep.
or when I'm self-aware, there's so much love and grace around that. When my husband is curious of, well, why did you do it that way? Or why are you thinking that way? I want to know you, right?
And I think you sense that from people. I think you can sense when somebody's being genuinely curious as opposed to when they're trying to kind of, poke the bear a little bit.
I'm stabbing you little stabs. Yeah.
So if someone is recognizing criticism more than curiosity, because I want to spend some time on curiosity because that's where we need to get to. But if someone is recognizing that their relationship is more fraught with criticism, what do they do?
Well, I think the first thing is that most people don't realize that they're being critical and not curious. All right? Most people, because we think that that's okay, like you need to do that better or da-da-da. So I think first, if I was this person, because I've been that person.
Yeah. I for sure have.
At 3 decades in a relationship with someone, we have shifted from criticism to curiosity. From curiosity to we've learned and we've balanced out in 3 decades that love is in curiosity, fear is in criticism. So whenever I've been that to my husband and he's been that to me, we ask each other questions, and we tell each other what we need. I feel like you're being very critical right now. I want to hear what you have to say, but I feel like you're being very critical right now and not seeing me and where I'm at with this.
And that's just adult communication.
It is.
But that's really hard to do if both people are heightened.
Well, you need to step away.
Right. And that's kind of where, we say this. I have this quote I use with friends and with people from a parenting perspective is, an escalated adult can never de-escalate a child. And I think the same thing is true for spouses or significant others or partners, whatever is, an escalated spouse is never going to de-escalate the other spouse. Right. So you're right. You either have to step back or communicate.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm sensing.
And that's what we said. Here's what, and I never here's what I'm sensing. I feel like that the thing that's coming across is criticism.
Right.
And what I really need is curiosity right now and understanding.
Yeah.
And when I do that with my husband, he does that with me, what happens, he comes down and says, I'm sorry. And you know what's always behind that is a fear.
Yeah.
He'll say, I was just afraid that,
It's true.
and he tells me, and because we're very open, I'll say, well, I was just afraid that you wasn't going to hear me out, or I was just afraid that this wasn't going to get done. Fear's behind it, but when there's curiosity, we're exploring one another together.
So I'm going to ask the question because I know people listening are probably wondering this. This seems like it comes more naturally to women than it does to men. Is that true or no?
It's possible.
Because I don't know if my guy friends sit around and complain about their wives not communicating and opening up and having a discussion, but I know my girlfriends do.
I mean, that's very possible. But my husband and I, we do a lot of spiritual couples counseling,
Yep.
and I've seen this with men.
Okay.
I think sometimes society will put men in this particular place.
Well, they don't want to get in their feels. Not
Right.
they don't, but it's
But
not
we'll
been as
put-
common.
What will happen that we'll put them in a place, right? And men, a lot of times with women, they'll just go to their place. That's your place. And no one ever asks them, so how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
And this is how they're communicating about it.
Okay, so when we do that and we're trying to get the men in our life to open up and we say, how do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
If they don't open, what do you do? Like if they're, it's fine. Good, fair.
Now,
The
my husband-
one-word answer.
One-word answer.
I'm looking over here at Isaac, our producer, who's got a big grin on his face. So I'm assuming Whitney may get some one. I don't know. But I think that's common. Like I'm thinking
it
about like
is.
my dad, my brother, and everything. Not my dad. My dad will open up. He's open book. But I think a lot of the guys I know are very much like, how do you feel about that? It's like feel. What?
Yeah.
They're hesitant to talk. I would hope in a relationship we're talking, right?
Right. Well, here's the first thing. Who taught them that?
The world.
Who taught men to not open up?
The world taught men
Right?
that,
So
for
then
sure.
you get this man, he's in his 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and up, and you're like, open up, talk. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It was like, well, who taught them? Who taught them how to open up? Who told them it's okay if you have emotions, if you have a feeling to be able to express it?
So
and you
for
are
the
still
guy-
fully a man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So the guys that are listening, my men that are listening, I'm not going to say guys, the men that are listening, how do they do that? Like, what is the way to help, for those of us who love those people, what's the way to get them to open up?
I think for my husband, we first got married. We were like early 20s when we first got married. And I remember asking him, so how do you feel about that? And he's like, about what? About what we just talked about. Oh, I feel good.
That's the exact
He's like,
answer I expect.
what?
Fine.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm thinking most of my guy friends, my brother, my dad, that's how they would respond.
Yeah, that's because that's how
Yeah.
that's what guys do. So what I start doing with my husband, instead of saying, so how do you feel about that? I'd say, so what are your thoughts on what we talked about? And then once he was able to say, because men can tell you what they're thinking about something.
Oh, yeah.
Once my husband say, well, I really think that da-da-da-da-da-da. A lot of men's thoughts are actually feelings.
We just need, okay.
We
Got
just
it.
need to pay attention. So what I would do with my husband telling me, he said, well, I really think that, if I would have been heard a little bit more, then maybe I would have been a lot more open.
So, ladies, instead of asking how they're feeling,
Yeah, I was like, what do you think about
ask them what
that?
they're thinking.
I said, what are you thinking about what are you thinking about what we just said, what just happened?
Okay.
And a lot of his feelings would come out. And
Yeah.
I would say, do you know that's a feeling and not a thought?
Oh, you called him out on it.
And he said, because I know he didn't know. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, it is?
Yeah.
And then he would explore that a little bit more. He's like, well, yeah, it kind of did hurt. I kind of
Yeah.
felt like I wasn't heard. And that did make me feel really disrespected.
So it sounds to me like you guys communicate well.
Yeah.
And communication is a core value of mine. I'm very big on communication.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I read a quote one time that says an overthinker needs a great communicator, because my brain's on overdrive all the time.
Yeah.
As long as I'm communicated with,
Yeah.
then I'm good.
Yeah.
I just want to know what's going on, what somebody's
Yeah.
thinking, feeling. But how did you guys develop a good open dialogue and open communication in your relationship?
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. What do you mean by that?
It goes back to the previous podcast about our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
What women do, and I can speak as one who's done it, when guys are not expressing their feeling, we get really insecure and want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so then we start like opening up the story time book and start telling stories about what we think is going on.
Right.
And then we project those emotions and feelings onto the guy. And then that makes him go even more like this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah.
We do that. We're so bad. Women are so bad
And
at that.
we'll do
Yeah.
that. So what I did is like, I have to create a safe space for my husband to be able to say what he thinks and what he feels, and without any judgment.
How'd you do that?
And not controlling what I think he should be thinking and what he should be feeling.
That's a hard one. Let's go on and put that out because it's true.
Yeah.
Because I think we do that with kids too. We've talked about kids
yeah.
before. But we do try to control it and think all that.
So I'm gonna give you a conversation.
Okay.
So early on in our marriage, this is how it went. Because people think marriage is like this romantic thing. It really is. It can be romantic and hot and steamy. But it's these
That's
things.
the one that's the
but
part
these
I like.
are things that make it that way.
Okay.
Right? It's quite technical.
Okay.
So what I would do, we get into a conflict, and I want to know how he feels about it. I would have to tell myself, whatever he says, this is his experience, and I will honor it. So I would say, so what are your thoughts about what we talked about? What are your thoughts on that or anything? And he'll say, well, I really feel like you wasn't listening to what I was trying to say. All right? And so doing this, well, I was trying to, because I want you to feel this way.
Yeah.
And then I say, okay, so can you give me some examples of what I was saying that made you feel that way? You say, well, when I did, and we will, and
Right.
it is a back and forth.
It's a dialogue.
It's a dialogue. It's a change that has to take humility.
Yeah.
And understanding, and ego cannot be a part of the party.
Yes.
Because I am trying to connect with my husband on an emotional level. And it's not about all of that. Does he love me? Of course, he's sitting here. He loves you.
Well, and I think we get in our own way with that because I say all the time, feelings are non-negotiable. Whatever somebody
Right.
feels, they feel. You can't change their mind on a feeling. We try to.
Yeah.
In relationships, in romantic relationships, we try to. But you really can't.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to kind of the love and the respect and the understanding and wanting. Because we do. I think
Yeah.
we have. I remember when we had to meet with the pastor that was marrying us before I got
Yeah.
married. With my ex-husband, and I distinctly remember you do all the sessions, and I remember her saying we had unrealistic expectations of marriage, and and we were young, right?
Yeah.
We were super young, way too young to have gotten married. But I remember her saying that, and I remember going, whatever, because my expectations were it was all fairy tales and unicorns and rainbows and all
Yeah.
the things that. It's not real life.
No.
Like it was. We weren't talking about like dialogues or
No.
difficult conversations or anything because things happen to us in life, right?
Right.
And we need to be able to have that
Be able to have
dialogue.
that. And understand that we all come from a different place of understanding.
Yes.
And I'm here to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's the thing that creates intimacy, is us opening up. I want to understand where you're coming from.
Yep.
And that we are in this together. This is our conversation, not mine, not yours. It's
Ours.
Our conversation that we're having.
And I think you just brought up you brought up the word intimacy, and when I learned and explored the definition of that, it's not what we all think. It's if you really break it down phonetically, it's into me see. Mm-hmm. It's letting someone else see inside of you, see what you're thinking,
Yeah.
see what you're feeling,
Yeah.
so they can honor that.
Yeah, curiosity.
And I feel like the more we do that in any relationship, I mean, we're talking dating and romantic relationships and marriages today, but I think with any relationship, the more we can try to look into someone and see what they're trying to help us see.
Right.
Some people, it's harder. They're not letting you see as much.
And that's okay.
Which is why the guys, it was funny a second ago when you said that about guys, we always like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? I read this satirical article about, what 17 things your man's thinking when you ask him what he's thinking and he says nothing.
Yeah.
And it was hysterical. It was hysterical. And I had actually forwarded it on and it was very accurate. But it was like, the ball game, the laundry that, he forgot to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
which is true because you're like, what are you thinking? Nothing. He might be thinking nothing.
And that's okay.
Yeah. So I think we try to think what we think as
Yeah.
opposed to really working on the intimacy and trying to see into them and figuring out
Right.
what's and this
there.
is male or female.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we think about relationships, and I'm going to just whole romantic couple relationships, what do you think people get wrong the most, aside from what we just talked about? Where do people jack up their relationships?
A lack of understanding. My husband and I have couples come to us all the time and say, especially because we get with a lot of people about to get married and do marriage counseling.
Yeah. Are they unrealistic in their expectations?
Oh my gosh,
too?
they are. They're like,
you can tell them my story didn't end well.
They come up to us and they say, they're like in their 20s, Miss Lisa, Mr. Joseph, tell us, what's the thing? What's the thing? And my husband will say, understanding. If you want to create great intimacy in any relationship, is to have the heart that I just want to understand you.
Yeah.
I said that's probably one of the most romantic things you can do in a relationship.
Yeah.
Is to understand another soul.
But I think when you do that, it allows you to be present as opposed to have an agenda. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I feel like so many times we work in a relationship and say, here's what I need, here's what I want, and as opposed to looking at what's best for the relationship.
Yeah. No, you're spot on.
That's hard to do when you're 20. I think all these kids coming to you for premarital counseling. I didn't do that.
Oh, it's
for
easy
sure.
for the 20. Let me tell you what makes it so easy when I really explain to these newlyweds, these girls about to get married. I say one of the most sexiest things that you're going to be able to ever experience with your husband is to be able to truly understand who he is.
Yeah.
Because that is going to change with the decades.
Yeah.
It's going to be new every time. And there's something that's going to awaken in you, and you're going to fall in love with this man again and again and
That's
again.
kind of
and
cool,
again.
though, right?
That's why I say understanding. Because my husband is in his 50s. I see him totally different when I saw him when he was like 22.
Yeah.
And he was all
I think the getting older husbands and the getting older relationships, that's the cool stuff.
It is.
Because you've been through some stuff,
Yeah,
right?
you've been through all your stuff. I mean, even when we were in our young 20s, there's things about him I was like, oh my God, this is so fascinating about him. But then when he got his 30s, I was like, oh my God, this is so fascinating. And then I'm like, oh my, in his 40s and now in his 50s, I was like, you guys, this is exciting stuff. I was like, Mama trying to show you something.
I like it. But, think about that, though. That's how relationships should be. Like, you should be excited. I feel like so many people I see that it just their relationship has settled into monotony. And I don't mean routine. I mean monotony. It's like whatevs. There's a lot of whatever relationships out there.
Yeah.
If you don't get excited, to see your spouse or your partner, I think you gotta look at what am I seeing? Maybe the intimacy isn't there. Maybe you're not seeing into them enough.
You just said we are so on. I was about that.
Look at us. Maybe I know what I'm talking about after all, Miss Whitney.
You do. Because
but it's true. But I didn't do that early on because I think I was worried more. I don't even know that I was worried. I think I was too consumed with a relationship or me or whatever, as opposed to looking at it. I think one of the things as I've gotten older, I've started to realize is that it's a partnership, not a spouse. Or does that make sense?
No.
I think I looked at my ex-husband, and he's we are very good as friends.
Yes.
Weren't a great married couple, but I feel like I probably spent the majority of the marriage, and he did too, just because we weren't a good fit. I think we spent the majority of it being spouses, not partners.
Right.
And I feel like when you're partners on something, then you kind of try to see where they are and you understand and you make decisions with that in mind.
Yeah.
You're grinning at me, so I know that means I'm onto something.
I think you're right. I mean, you're completely right. Because I think even when you're in your 20s all the way up to now, my husband, we're in our 50s, is that I never stopped seeing him, and he never stopped seeing me.
That's the thing. I think you can do this in your 20s. I did not do this in my 20s.
You can't. I mean,
it took me to my 50s, but
when you first meet the person,
you
see something about that person that fascinates you.
Yeah.
And when you're around him and when you're with him, you're like, I'm feeling this, and I'm seeing this, and he's seeing this, and he's feeling this, and you have that exchange.
Yeah.
You have to keep seeing that person. You have to keep looking inside, and understanding takes that.
Yeah.
Because we grow, we evolve.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's the sad thing is when I see couples, very young, very young, and I say, she doesn't see him anymore. and
Yeah.
he doesn't see her anymore. But I see them both.
Yeah.
And that could wake everything up.
But I think so. If somebody has lost that fizzle, that away, because like even hearing you talking about it, you're like all
Yeah.
excited. I'm like, ooh, I feel like starting dancing.
Yeah.
But if somebody has lost that,
Yeah.
how do they get it back?
First of all, you have to think about what took it away, what you gave it away to. Something could have taken it away. You could have given it away, or you could have just let it. So you have to look at that first.
Yeah.
To see if what you see is still there,
Yeah.
or to see if what's there you're still in love with.
That's true too, because it may not be.
It may
that's-
not be
And I'm
there.
not, obviously I'm divorced, so it's a little bit different, but I'm not a fan personally
Yeah.
of staying in a relationship that's not
Yeah.
not nourishing you or that's not right for you. But I think a lot of people do. They just exist.
Yeah.
And some people make that choice consciously, and more power to you.
Yeah.
But if you want to awaken something, then I feel like
Yeah, if you want to, what you can.
it sounds like the opportunity's there.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
just a
the
conscious
opportu-
choice.
It's a conscious choice to.
Yeah.
But what it is, you have to get down and you have to look at. So what has happened? Well, I don't see him anymore.
Yeah.
What has happened? Well, I don't see her anymore.
So how much of that do you think has to do with life?
Oh, that's a lot.
And the reason I ask that is I have a lot of clients and friends who have younger. Our kids are older, but I have a lot of clients and friends with younger kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I hear them talk about their spouse, their relationship, their life has become a checklist. I've got to take this one here. I've got to drop this one here. We've got this practice at that. It becomes. And I know when I was married and my kids were younger, we would try, because the therapist said we had tried date nights. So date nights became a checklist of everything we had to do. We weren't actually spending any time getting to know. I don't know that it would have changed anything in our case, but it became a checklist. And I see that in so many relationships, that life and their relationship has become who's picking up the kids, who's doing this, it's a checkbox
Yeah.
as opposed to relationship. And that sucks. I mean, nobody wants that. How do they get out of it? I mean, is that what's contributing a lot?
I
do you think?
I think you're correct on that. I think that's 100%. My husband and I, we've had that. I mean, our kids, my son is 36 and 23 this year, but our grandchildren live with us, and
Yeah.
we're in our 50s.
Yep.
So
You got a whole nother checklist.
we have a whole nother.
So you do, that's right, because you doing school and you
I
doing
do
all
all
this.
of
You were
that.
doing school during the pandemic, all that. So
Yeah.
how did you guys, so for those people listening that have the checklist
Yeah.
and busy lives, because we have busy
Yeah.
lives. We all have a busy life. You have a busy life. We all have busy lives. How do you make sure you take time for the relationship and not allow things to turn into?
So when it's just, for me, this is just my experience. When it is just about life's got really crazy for us.
Yeah.
And then there's no really undercurrent things that you probably need to deal with, the reason why you don't see each other anymore.
Yeah.
This is what you do. And it's a very beautiful practice. And it's a physical practice.
Oh, I like that.
Okay? And then you have to make sure you have time to do this physical practice.
Okay.
My husband and I have always committed to looking at each other into each other's eyes and saying, I see you.
Oh, that's sweet. I like that.
And you say it until the other person feels, I see you. And some couples need to recommit to saying, I see you. And what my husband, he's done,
Yeah.
he'll say, I see you. I see how hard you're working. I see how your illness is really affecting your body.
Yeah.
I see how you're giving out so much to others and not getting back enough that you deserve. I see you. I want you to know this. And
That's a big thing, though.
this is something that we do, and I tell him,
I've
I
never
see
done
you.
that. Huh.
I see how hard you're working for this family
Yeah.
and how much you take on and
Yeah.
how you are supporting our boys, but also supporting our grandchildren. I see you.
Yeah.
And so that is a physical practice
Okay.
that you need to take. Couples can take 2 or 3 minutes out before
Yeah,
you go to
that
bed at
doesn't
night.
really sound like it's this
No.
long, drawn out. You're not having to go out to.
Instant. We do this over the sink in the kitchen sometimes.
That's funny. I like that though.
Because
but it's easy. You could do it anytime.
You can do it anytime, but we practice it. We don't
Yeah.
just say it.
Yeah.
This is how.
Well, then that's
I
how you know
see
it's not checklist. Because,
It's
like I said,
not.
so many things have become, oh, we'll go on date night, we'll do this, we'll do
No.
that, and it doesn't always help.
Couples stop seeing each other.
Yeah.
And you have to have some type of pause
Yeah.
from the zoomies of life
Mm-hmm.
to where you want to get at on this side. And the pause can be that simple exercise of saying, I see you.
Yeah.
And my husband and I, we say thank you and please. Anything. My husband can take the trash out. I always tell him thank you. My husband
Yeah.
always say thank you for dinner. for 30 years
Yeah.
of cooking. He says,
Yeah.
thank you for this meal. I see what
Yeah.
you've done.
But I think even little acknowledgments like that
Yeah.
are good. Because I always think for dinner, like if we go out or anything like
Yeah.
that, that's a big thing for me. I'm like, thank you. It's just, we kind of, it keeps it from being routine.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like you and Joseph have put a lot of practices in that allow a renewal of it.
It's we renew over and over. Even when we got our grandchildren,
Yeah.
we set up how life would look.
Yeah.
We said, this is what life is going to look like for our marriage, for our togetherness. And that's what we do.
And you talk through it.
And we talked through it. And he said, okay. And we didn't talk through how the schedule is going to be.
Yeah.
We talked through how we're going to be with one another. When I was on bed rest and I had our first son, my husband had to go back to work and work 2 jobs. Before he decided to do that, and I only saw him 4 hours out of a whole entire day.
Whoa.
And I said, and I was going to stay home with Tyler. I said, when you come home, I would do picnics on the floor while I was nursing Tyler.
Yeah.
And we would kiss and date night, and he would go to his second job. He did that for almost a year. But we
Wow.
communicated how we would see each other in a time that was financially hard,
Yeah.
but that we were not going to allow that to disconnect us from seeing each other.
And I think the quality time is
Yeah,
huge.
it
And I think
is.
we all, I say this all the time, we make time for what's important to
Yeah.
us. We definitely do.
We do.
So, I want to talk a little bit about people who are not in relationships, because I think that's important too,
Yeah.
because frequently I'll feel like, you're trying to make things fit.
Yeah.
And so people do. I've hands down, you make time for who and what is important to
Yes.
you. So and those are amazing tips for married, dating, all of that. For those people listening who have not found that,
Yeah.
have not found that feeling where you're like light up, because you guys say that all, they're like, your face lights up. If your face isn't lighting up yet,
Yeah.
what, we talked about the relationship with yourself, what do they need to be thinking?
Well, I remember this time, because it was a long time ago, but
You remember it with me?
yeah, I remember this time. But I remember this time being single. I was a single mom and
Yeah.
trying to, okay, so, where is he at?
Yeah.
You know
God
what?
said he's coming.
God
I'm
says he's
waiting.
coming. Let me tell you something my husband said to me that attracted him to me. He said, you was enjoying life, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Oh, I like that.
He saw
That's
that.
really good.
Because I was.
Yeah.
I was a single mom. I was financially, life was crazy. I was
Yeah.
carrying 6 bags of groceries on one arm and a 3-year-old kid on my hip, catching the MARTA bus in Atlanta. But I was enjoying my life because I knew who I was
Yeah.
in that moment. And I was like, I'm gonna have a good time.
But think about that. I mean, I love the way you said that. He said you were enjoying your life.
He wanted to be
and
a part
I
of
wanted
it.
to be a part of it.
That's what he told me.
And I challenge people a lot on that is you are going to attract who you are.
Yep.
So if you want to attract somebody that's loving life and having fun and,
Mm-hmm.
and a good upstanding, person with high integrity, you got to be that person.
You do.
Because you're going to attract who you are.
Yep.
So when I was insecure, I attracted insecure. When
Yeah.
I was, crazy, I never really went through, maybe I did go through a crazy stage. I don't know. You attract what you are.
Or even
I
where you're
love
at.
that.
Even if it's not who you are,
Yeah.
it's what you believe in about yourself,
Yeah.
about where you will attract that.
Yeah.
I was just enjoying my life because I told you my mentor, she had got with me, she said, Lisa, you're gonna
Yeah.
attract who you are and where you're at.
Yep.
And I was like, oh girl, I need to get this together and have a good time with life because that's who I need to attract.
But that's true. You're going to
Sincerely.
attract who you are and where you're at. I love
Yeah.
that. That is so critical. Girl, I'm telling you, you make some changes. But it's true. I think for those of you guys listening who are not, the single ones out there, that's a big thing. And no one really tells you that.
Yeah.
Because we spend so much time when, when single, like you single girls listening, guys too, because I have a lot of single guy friends too. And y'all will do the thing where you're like, oh, yeah, he's great. He's not great. You saw those red flags. He's not great. Quit telling him they're great. And then, there was a whole movie about he's not just,
he's not into
that
you?
into you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not. And we just like, oh, girl, no, he just likes you more. He's probably just playing hard to get. That's why he hadn't called you in 3 weeks. He is not playing hard to get.
No,
He
he's
is
not.
into you. So I think just showing up and loving life, the right
Yeah.
person are going to knock on your door.
And who would
Or
want
be dropped up by a friend.
But I think about that advice that you just said. That makes no sense to me.
It doesn't, but we listen to it.
But that makes any sense. Like, he's playing hard to get. Why would you
Yeah.
want to be aligned with such consciousness?
I totally agree.
Why would
with
you
that.
be aligned
Yeah.
with someone that's playing hard to get? Do you know what you're going to get someone that's hard
Yeah.
to get? Why would I want that?
Yeah, but you're right because you attract what you get. You're hard to get. You're hard to get on a date because you're tolerating that. I think you. I said this the other day in a meeting with our Renew coaching community, and one of the girls there, she's like, "Oh my God," she almost fell on the floor. I'm like, "You deserve the life you tolerate."
Yeah.
And I think that is so true with relationships.
Yeah.
You deserve the life. And I'm not saying you have to dictate to your spouse, your significant other, here's how it's going to be.
No.
But if you tolerate love and acceptance and intimacy and trying to get to know the person, that's what you're going to get back.
Yeah.
But if you tolerate hard to get, non-committal, wishy-washy, anything like that,
You get that too.
you get that too. Because I'll hear a lot. I follow a relationship guy on Instagram, Jake Woodard. He's amazing. He and his wife do a lot of stuff, and he talks about that. He's like, you're going to attract what you put out there. So if you're, the let's hang out, just go with the flow type of person, if your guy's saying, let's just go with the flow,
Yeah.
it's not going anywhere.
No.
It's going to flow right away.
No.
So I think you've got to look for those qualities.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what, we've talked about the marriages for the single. What do people look for if they're out there? Meaning like the single ladies and men, all the single ladies.
All the single ladies.
You can sing, I can't sing. So all the single ladies and guys that are out there, because I do have a few people that I know listen very, very regularly.
Yeah.
That this has been a topic, and this is why they keep asking that we
Yeah.
do this topic. What do they need to be looking for? Or do they not need to be looking? Because I will say, me, I was not looking at all because I don't look, and you knew that.
Oh, I knew that. He's like, I'm not looking.
I'm
at
not
all.
looking. But so maybe it's that. Maybe that's the advice. Quit looking and
Okay.
just be. I mean, I don't. So what do they need to do? You
Okay.
you push that with me. You're like,
you
just be.
you did that. You already said it, okay? Because I was thinking this too. I was like,
Yeah.
What do they need to look for? Nothing.
Okay. Which is true. Because I was not
Nothing.
looking. Okay.
Because here's the thing that gets in the way when you're looking for something. Do you even know who you are?
Yeah.
Because if you figure out, when you understand who you are and you start having that good relationship with yourself,
Yep.
it's like, I know what I want.
For sure.
You know what you want.
Yes.
You're like, okay, what should I be looking for? When you understand
Yeah.
who you are,
Yeah.
you know what you want. When I understood who I was, I knew exactly what I wanted.
And then he showed up, and you're like,
And-
that's it.
And he showed up.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I wrote a list out.
Yeah. Oh, I had a list.
Once I,
You know I had a
but I
list. You've
only
seen
wrote
my
a
list.
list out because, I don't need this list being filtered through crap I haven't dealt with.
Yeah.
So once I took care of myself
Yeah.
and understood Lisa in a healthy way, which is a lifelong thing to do, but at least in her 20s,
Yes.
where she was at.
Yeah.
Then I wrote that list out. And then I didn't compromise on that. And I said, when he shows up, I'll know it.
Yeah.
Because I know myself a lot better now.
And I think, we joke about the list and everything. And I had a therapist I worked with before, I'd had the list. And the list became a lot of the opposite of, people I'd, my ex.
Right.
But I think you're right. And you just show up as that person.
Yeah.
And I know one of the pastors here had said that one of the quotes he always says is, are you who the person you're looking for is looking for?
Yeah.
And it's true. It's like, am I showing up as the person I'm trying to attract? Am I showing up as the person I know I could be?
Yeah.
Because that's where, it sounds like for 30 years of marriage, that's where it got really good, is when you showed up and he's like, I like that. I want to be a part of that.
He said, I want to be a part of that. And we're still looking at each other saying, I want to be a part of that. Because we're allowing ourselves to grow. Here's one more thing I do want to say to single ladies and men. Please be real. Please be. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
and this is what I'm saying when I say real. Your relationship with yourself reveals where you at about that whole love thing.
Yeah.
So here's the stuff I hear. Well, I really want to get married, even though you do. I'm not really looking for something serious, even though you are.
What?
Can you just be real about what you? Because what it is fear.
I
It's
feel a little
fear.
personally attacked here.
Well,
Lisa.
this is where we're at. This is what we're talking
It's
about.
true, though. It's true, though.
Because I'm
It's
like
fear.
Because that's what you're gonna get.
Yes.
You're gonna get this. You're like, why someone's not showing up? Because you're right here. You're in the.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Be real about what you want.
Yes.
If you want to get married,
100%.
say, I want to be married. I want a husband.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
a wife.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, I just want someone that no, that's not real.
Because that's what you're going to attract.
That's what you're going to attract.
Yeah.
And you wonder why this guy wishy-washy. Because he said, well, that's what you ordered.
Yep. I think it's true because you really think about it. It seems like you're at a restaurant. I'm going to order this, but you do. You get served exactly what you're putting out there and what you're wishing for.
I want a husband who was an amazing father,
Yeah.
who respected and loved me and allowed me to be a free spirit that I am. That's Joseph.
And that's what you got.
And that's what I got.
So I think that's the main thing is put out what you want and be that person.
Be it.
And the right person. Quit looking is what you're saying.
Stop looking.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life. There's a lot of
Yeah.
good living in this moment of your life. Enjoy
Yeah.
it. And you attract someone that says, hey, I want to be a part of that. That looks like you having a good time.
Then y'all get to both have some good times together, right? But it's true. And I think the difference, having good and bad, it's a big difference.
It's a huge
You get
difference.
in that and you're like, whoo, this is cool.
Yeah.
Should have done this sooner, right?
Yes.
That's really cool. I'm excited for you that you found that at 20.
Thank you.
That's really good. But whether it's
you.
20, 30, 40,
50, 60, or
or
70.
50,
doesn't
or 80,
matter.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
I think that's good. So
you.
takeaways, the intimacy. That's really what it's about, is looking into the person
Yeah.
and looking into yourself,
First,
and above all, just having some fun.
enjoy your life.
Yeah. With yourself,
Yeah.
with your person,
Yes.
wherever you are.
Yes.
I love it. Lisa Washington, thank you. Thank you for tackling our topic that people have been wanting to talk about. This is a good one. I
It's a
love
good
it.
one.
And I thank you because, you're like you're the big person in that for me. So
Aw,
that's really good.
thank
So
you.
thank you for being with us and for talking about this. And I'm sure we will continue
There's so much to talk about.
to have
this.
Lisa, because we could go on and on about relationships. We definitely need to have her back and talk about the parenting one again, because that was a big episode from, I think, last season.
Yeah.
That we'll have to revisit. So I hope you guys will take everything that Lisa said to heart. Look into yourself, look into your significant other, partner, spouse, whatever we're calling them, and just have some fun. Be yourself and love over fear all the time. So until next week, make it a good one, and we will see you again next Thursday for another episode of Renew.